So we were here at discussing about arrays and in particular about 2D arrays. And we also discussed how these two, matrices as well as array of pointers, how does that change in terms of both the memory layout as well as how many elements you can accommodate inside each row, etc. So we discussed that towards the end. What we also did earlier was to look at the binary search in the context of a single dimensional array. Now, a similar question can also be asked in the context of matrices. How will you ask that question? Well, you are given a matrix which is sorted from left to right and top to bottom. You are given a 2D array which is sorted from left to right and top to bottom, which means that if you take any row that is sorted in ascending order, let's say, and if you take any column that is also sorted. Now, given this, can you perform the search in an optimal way even inside this array? Okay? So by default, if you go through linear search, you are going to require order n square time or m into n if there are a different number of rows and columns. But is there a possibility that we can do better? So that is what we would like to discuss today. So just to give you the context, let me just so if the matrix is sorted from left to right and top to bottom, can we perform binary search, right? So this question we would like you to think about, and we'll come back to this on the next slide. But just before that, we are going to look at one small problem. At least I'm going to introduce that problem. And if you have interest, you can try to do that. Some of you might be chess enthusiasts. So I thought that this problem might be of interest to you. Right? By the way, any of you are fight rated? Okay, Tanay says he is. Are there others? Good to know. I think definitely whether you are fight rated or not, many of you must have played chess at some point in time. And I'm sure you will find this problem interesting. Right? So we have a knight. Knight is in the, as in chess. And that pawn is going to move 2.5 places, right? Exactly. So the problem goes like this: that you are given this chessboard, right? And only the knight is given. And can you start from a corner, any of the corners, and now can you visit each of the squares of this chess, that is the 64 squares of this 8x8 chess, such that you visit each square exactly once, right? And in 64 moves you cover the chessboard. So there are no other pawns, only the knight is present. So this problem is called as knight's tour problem. So let me mention that here. And of course, the wrapping around across the board, etc., is not allowed. So these are all legal moves, as we know in chess. So now, if you take a central position on the chessboard, then there are 8 positions that this knight can go to, as indicated in gray. Of course, the number of positions will be smaller as you come towards the edge or towards the corner of this chessboard. But assuming that all these legal values, legal moves are allowed, can you visit all of these in 64, let's say, moves of the knight? Right? So that is the question. Any thoughts on how this needs to be done, whether this is possible, whether this is not possible, etc.? Okay, so I didn't get any immediate responses, and I'm happy about that. I request that all of you try this out. Not now. Don't take out your chessboard right away. Mayank says we can do this recursively. Okay, sure. I recommend that you take out your chessboard, which you may not have played since a while now, and try this out. Or some of you who are not do not have that, just try it on a piece of paper. You just mark those as white and gray or something, and just try it out. As long as you know this 2.5 moves, you should be able to try this out, and you will face issues. But the answer to this question is, as Mayank said, it is yes. That is, not always this exists, in the sense that in 8x8 chessboard, this is knight's tour is possible. So that I can give you. But it doesn't come naturally, in the sense that you might, as long as the solution exists, you can try all possible combinations. You go and try to put the knight at the next position. At some point you will reach a place where you will not be able to put any position, all the positions are occupied, and so on. So such situation will occur. At that time you can backtrack. Backtrack meaning you will undo the current move, go back to the previous one, and kind of try to correct. In this manner, there is a guarantee that if the solution exists, you will hit it. But that backtracking is very time consuming. My recommendation is, once you have tried it for a few moves, is try it out. Can you do it without backtracking? Right? So in exactly 64 moves without backtracking, will you be able to do that? Again, the answer is yes. And I would like you to think about it. It's an interesting answer. And as you practice a little bit, you'll be able to. By the way, this question is also available online. You will find the solution online. But I think it's a fun to try it out yourself instead of looking up online. Later, if you don't get it, then you can search online. Some of you who are enthusiastic about matrix-based codes, you can also try coding it. I mean, you might find that this is very complicated, but not at all. Right? You just need to implement a small constraint-based program using 8x8 matrix, and you start from 0, 0, and just see if you are able to do it. But before that, your algorithm should be clear. Right? Is there a unique answer? If you start from a particular corner, let's say 0, 0, then the answer is unique. All right. So I'm not going to spend time, but I'm definitely going to leave you with this question. Without knowing the project, can we say if a solution exists? Okay, that's a very interesting question that Mani Chandana had asked. If I don't know the algorithm, can we say that a solution exists? This is a very important question, which to some extent we briefly touched upon when we discussed about the overall computer science perspective, and we said that discrete maths is a place where we ask these questions. These are called as decision questions. So I don't know the algorithm, but I know that the solution exists. I personally don't know how to prove it in case of knight's tour. But there exist there exist problems for which you can find out that the problem is solvable, but you don't know the algorithm. Right? Many times it is also possible to say that the problem is solvable with a particular complexity, but I don't know what that algorithm is. Right? So this also exists, and while this is not going to be really our emphasis, but this is something which we need to get into as far as some of the proof techniques are concerned. Right? So it also comes up since we are talking about programming in this course, I should also mention that there is an area in computer science which is called as verification of programs. What does that do? You are given a program and you want to prove that this program does this. In such programs also, there are some notions of what Mani has asked which get used. So there is, for example, I can possibly tell it in the context of chess itself. You start from an initial configuration of the chessboard where there are 8 pawns and then different kinds of other pawns and so on. This is one state that you are in, right? From this state, there are multiple moves possible. So if I represent this as some sort of node, and you can view it as a tree. Tree we are going to study a little bit, but think about it as upside down. Root is above and all the leaves are below. So that is what computer science teaches you, right? So viewing nature upside down. So this from the initial position, you are going to come to the next level, right? Which are different possibilities of the first player, the white player, let's say. And then from then on, there is a black which is going to play. For each of these moves, there are multiple such branches possible. So now this grows and grows quite rapidly, because as you start playing, the number of moves start growing very, very rapidly. I mean, number of possible moves. What you want to know, and what the chess players usually do, is they try to build this tree in their mind, where you are going to see or look ahead into the future, that if I make this move, then the opponent is going to make this move, and then on that basis I can make a move, right? So there are 3 levels with which you are thinking. Some of the top players might be able to think a little further, and might be able to think of multiple such levels in this decision tree, right, or the competition tree, so to say. And your win is guaranteed, provided, right? So your win is guaranteed provided you make a move such that all the different paths, right, multiple hop paths, if all of them finally result in a win for you, at that place you can say that you are going to definitely win. Right? And the opposite is also true for the opponent. So in that case, in this particular example of chess, although I know exactly what move I make, suppose I don't give you that information, but I give you only the tree. Then by using this some sort of reachability in this tree or the subtree, the position where I am, and from there, all the paths that lead to any leaf, if all of those contain a win for me, then definitely I am going to win. This decision I can make without knowing what my move is. Right? So I don't know the algorithm, but I might still be able to say that, okay, at this stage I am safe, or I am going to be the winner, and so on. Right? So such situations are little rare in chess, but there are other games which you play, right? So there are some 2 version games that sometimes we play, right? So maybe we'll play now. I mean, not an issue. So there is a game called I don't know what that game is called, but you have to choose a number from 1 to 10. Right? So somebody is ready to play with me. So I'm going to explain the game, and we can play this. So there is a number from 1 to 10 which one of us is going to choose, and then we'll go on adding, and the other person will also choose 1 to 10, and we'll go on adding these numbers. The person who is able to get the sum to 100 is going to be the winner. So somebody wants to play, or 2 of you want to play, or you can play with me. Anybody wants to volunteer? Don't worry, we'll not take too much time. Okay, Shri Vishnu Kumar, he knows the game. Okay, then I'll not play with you. No, maybe we'll play. Sure, go ahead, Vishnu Kumar. You want to start, or I should start? Won't the first person always win? Aniruddha says. Okay, then maybe Vishnu Kumar can start. Okay, Vishnu Kumar, go ahead.
7.
Yeah.
7, sir. 7.
7. Okay. So I'll say 5. So now it becomes 12.
Ooh, the person who reached 100. Yeah. So 8.
So that is 20 plus 9, 29.
1.
So that is 30 plus 5, 35.
5.
8 you said?
5. 40. Now it's 40.
40. Okay. So let's say 46.
4.
50. Okay. So as you can see, Sri Vishnu is trying to reach the 30, 40, 50 like that, so that he feels that maybe he will win at 100, right? So let's see if, and he has also started, as Aniruddha has suggested, he has started. So we are at 50. So maybe I'll say 57.
3.
Okay, so that is 60. Maybe I'll say 67.
3.
That is 70. Maybe I'll say 78.
2.
So that is 80. Maybe I'll say 89.
1.
That is 90. And since the number is from 1 to 10, I'll say 100.
Oh. It was from 1 to 10. Yeah. So there is some constraint. Yes.
Sorry, what?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
So I
please
should have
don't
made
feel-
the sums to 11 or something.
You should not follow 19, 29, 39.
Yeah, exactly. It should have been
Something
able
else.
to get 99 or 89. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I can see that you guys are into it, but the answers are not all correct, right? So, for example, as Nistel was suggesting or Ankur is suggesting, it's not 19, 29, 39. You should think about it. What Sri Vishnu Kumar said about 11 is the correct order. And I think you should play that with your siblings or your parents or your friends. And I think it will be fun. So what I'm trying to say, the whole point was not to play the game, but the idea was that there is a strategy, and the strategy allows the first person to always win. As Aniruddha had pointed out, that the person who starts the game has a winning strategy. That's called as a winning strategy. And there are games like that. In contrast, there are games where there is no winning strategy. I mean, only after a while you will be able to see. For example, even the game of tic-tac-toe, there is no winning strategy. You can make sure that you don't lose, but you cannot always win. Right? So that is what is interesting about some of these games. Especially board games are very nice about that. And you should start thinking computationally now about the board games that you might be playing at some point in time. Okay. Any questions on this? Otherwise, we'll move to our sorted matrix question. Okay, so let's move ahead. So we are given this sorted matrix, left to right, top to bottom, right? And we'll assume that all the values are unique, although that is not too much of a trouble, as we can possibly see later. And an example matrix which must have come to your mind, but I'll just display it anyway, is that the matrix might look like this, where there are values which are going from left to right and then top to bottom, but all of these are in sorted. This is just to get the algorithm correct. Kaushik says, sir, should we find the algorithm without backtracking? For the Knight's Tour, that's what I would recommend, because the backtracking algorithm is going to be rather easy. Easy meaning you just exhaust all possible options and then go back and try the next option. Right? So it's going to actually require exponential amount of time. Right? The number of combinations is going to be exponential, but you can do it in linear time. That's what I'm saying, that you can actually find out, well, linear, if you consider 8 as a constant, otherwise it might require a little bit of work. So I can say that it is at max going to be n square, but it will not be more than that. Okay, so coming back to this matrix. So I hope you are able to visualize this. Sure. So consider this our favorite number 44, right? So in binary search, we came to page number 44. So in this case also we'll look at the number 44, which is going to be at the probably somewhere in the middle. What can you say about different values, right, which are going to be there if you have to search based on? So I come to the middle of this matrix, that is middle of the rows, middle of the columns, and I am searching for some value. Let's say I am searching for 61. Right? What can you say about searching 61? Any thoughts?
It should be on the rows below 44 and columns right to 44.
Okay. So the suggestion that Pawan gave is that it should be on the right and the below. That is, so let me put this as, so if you take XY axis and origin at 44, then this becomes third quadrant, right? So where 61 actually exists. Is it possible? So is it possible that the 61 value appears in the first quadrant?
No.
Okay. So what is special about 61? It's just a value which is above 44, right? That's the only information we have. 49, yeah, as Shri Vishnu Kumar has also suggested, 49 is a value which is above 44, but it is there in the first quadrant. In fact, 57 is also another value which is above 44 and it is in the fourth quadrant. Did I make a mistake in creating the matrix? Just check that. Is it sorted from left to right? Is it sorted from top to bottom? Right. So this is one important observation. This many times we don't feel it that way. I mean, the way, for example, we were thinking about that, it should be in the third quadrant. This is a very natural kind of observation that comes up, but it is not correct. So the value, what you can say is, the only thing that you can say at this stage is that if the value is smaller than 44, it will not be in the second quadrant. That is the quadrant 3, 5, 9 up to 24, 30, 44. Right? All these values are going to be less than equal to 44. That is the only aspect that you can say. Otherwise, the value, if it is greater than 44, it can lie in any of Q1, Q3, and Q4. Shri Vishnu Kumar says, can you explain how the matrix values are sorted? Sorted is only from left to right and top to bottom. If you take any row, the values are sorted. If you take any column, the values are sorted. That's the only thing. And in addition, we have said that the values are unique. It is increasing as we move towards the right and as we move down. Yes, that is correct. So I hope this observation you are able to make, that if I am looking for a value which is above 49, that need not only lie in Q3. It can lie in Q3, Q4 as well as Q1, right, which is the right top. Okay? Any questions so far? This observation is crucial because I am going to come up with an algorithm which is going to be wrong, essentially based on the suggestion that we discussed just now. Okay, so all the values less than 44 appear in the left top corner of 44. Right? So that is given, that is okay in that particular quadrant. Right? 3, 5, 9, 4, 6, 11 up to 24, 30, 44. These are the only values possible less than equal to 44. Okay. And greater than can be in the remaining 3. Right? So that is important. So now we want you to devise a method to search for an element in this matrix. Quadrant, does that include the axis also? That's a good point. So as far as the axis is concerned, that we are very sure because the values above and left to that number are going to be smaller, and assuming all values are unique, and right and below are going to be larger. So if you are searching for a value which is greater, then the axis to the right should also be included. If you are looking for a value smaller, then the axis above as well as left should also be included. Correct. So please spend some time thinking about this problem and how can you solve it efficiently. We'll discuss some algorithms, some wrong ones, some good ones. And if there are any thoughts, we can discuss. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask.
Sir, we should first move along the axis vertical and horizontal to find where it might lie and then search along those particular rows. say we move vertically. So say we want to locate 15 from 44. We move up so that it decreases, and we see 12 and 22 and 12 are where it can lie. Like, oh yeah, so it is less than. Oh, okay. So sorry, sir. Like we'll have, it might lie in the 40, 41 row, 22 row, every, like all the possible rows. So we'll have to check everywhere. Similarly, we can go towards the left and say, oh, I'm not saying any algorithm. Sorry.
No. That's, you don't have to say sorry and all. We are just discussing and trying to learn. It's perfectly fine. So whatever. So I think in the discussion, Sri Vishnu found out that it's not going to be easy. I mean, we can discard one of the quadrants. That is the handle that we have in some sense, right? So when we reached 44, if the number is smaller than 44, then we can discard 3 quadrants. But if the number is greater than, then we can discard only 1 quadrant. So that is going to be kind of an important point. Okay.
Sir, we can move one step to any of the 2 axes which we have, and then from there we can check whether the number is larger or greater or lesser than the number we have to find. And from there we can eliminate another quadrant with that. So for example, if we go to 50, so now 49 is less than 50. So we can know that it won't be in the quadrant which is below 50. So so similarly we can do that. But suppose if we come to the 47 and 48 to that row, then we will have to check till 54 and 60, and then we'll have to see if all these things are there. So
okay, so suppose 49 is above 47, then what will you do?
So then we can't arrive in a conclusion there. So then we'll have to check that row, and then we'll go to the next row 48, and like that we'll go till 54, and then from 54 we'll know that it won't be below 54. So it should be above 54 only. So we can check that row, and then we can leave this whole 2 quadrants, and then we can go to the last 1 quadrant at once. So we need to move till we find a number which is greater than the number which we are searching, and then from there we can eliminate the other the quadrants which are either below that or towards the right.
Sir, we can actually like start from 69 and then the like right bottom corner, and then take 1 step to the left, which is basically go to 62. So we know that as we are moving, starting from 69 and moving, taking steps like this, we know that our number should be only in the places which is to the left top of it, that rectangle. So we can just periodically move to the smallest neighbor consecutively, and then find it till we find it. So after 69 we can move to 56, and we know that it will be in the second quadrant of 56. So we can just move towards the smaller neighbor and find it.
Correct, but if you go to 56, from there, how do you know that it is on the 49 is in the upper right or lower down, or even upper left?
Yeah,
right.
So
So
we go to 53, right?
but why will you go to 53? Because 49 is smaller than 56, so you might go to 48. Is that correct?
No, we go to places only which is greater than. So we should be sure that 49 should lie in the second quadrant of the number we are going to. So we make that check at every stage.
Correct. So we start from 69, we come to 56.
Yes, and then if we are searching for 49, then we go to 53, which is the neighbor that is greater than 49, which is greater than 49 and the least among the other neighbors. So that is a 2.
Okay, so I can possibly replace 53 and 54, which are the neighbors of 56 in the input map. I'm just playing an adversarial role here.
Yeah, so we go to the lesser one of them. So for example,
correct. So if 54 is replaced by 53, then I'll go to the left of 56, which is 53. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. So this will
but then 49 might not be there.
No, 49 will still be in the second quadrant of that number, right? That position.
Yes,
we have
whatever
to-
current position.
So,
Yes.
so yeah, we repeat the step again.
Oh, I see. Sure. Aniruddha
So we
has,
could split.
Sir, one more thing.
yeah,
Can we-
Nischal.
Also, like what I thought was that focusing on 44, the quadrant type, wasn't giving us a generalized approach. So what I thought would work is if we start from top right or bottom left. There's one rule which always applies is that we move towards the right, the number will increase. And if we move towards the bottom, the number will always increase. Like one step. And if we move up or move left, the number will decrease. So suppose the number we want is x. And we start from bottom left. So suppose if the number we want is greater than the bottom, the number we have right now. So we move towards the right. And after moving, if it's lesser than that, we'll move towards we'll move one step upward. So we are taking only two steps in that way. Like there's only two options: right side or upwards from, say, suppose 35. So in that we'll be able to, effectively be able to reach that number at the end.
Sure. So what Nischal says is interesting. So we can start from the upper right or lower left corner and discard one row or one column at a time because this property is satisfied. In fact, that is one algorithm that we are going to study. We'll come to that and discuss this more. Okay.
Sir,
Somebody.
further, I had a similar approach, only that to choose between whether going left or up. So we'll compare the term which is right above. So we'll start at the bottom right, because we can discard 3 quadrants as we progress. And
that is a little difficult, Saicharan.
Yeah,
Discarding.
so we'll start at 69, and then we'll check between 66 and 62 which is greater. So 66 is greater, so we'll move upwards and check.
Okay.
Now from 66 we'll compare between 61 and 56. 61 is greater, so we move up again. So whenever conditions are satisfied, we kind of move towards the larger number. And if the condition is broken, say when we go to 61 and then we see that 44 say doesn't fit in the condition, then instead of 61 we move to the left, which is 56.
Right, but at this stage, are you guaranteed to move towards 49?
44.
Okay, you are searching for 44. Okay, so in this manner, if we follow, what will happen is, suppose I am searching for 49. So I go from 69 to 66, then to 61, and then to 55. Yes. And then I need to choose between 51 and 52. Correct?
Yes.
And I'm going to choose 52.
Yes.
Correct? At this stage, I could have flipped 51 and 52. I mean, still the matrix is sorted.
So then, if you flip 51 and 52, so from 55 first we'll go to 52. We'll
Correct.
check if yes, and then we'll check if 49 lies in the right. Okay, still 49 will be less than 52.
So the important message here, as Sai Charan has also suggested, is that we cannot discard 3 quadrants. We can discard only 1 quadrant, right, at a time. But I think there are a lot of messages here. Let me just go through this. We can naively do row-wise binary search. That's an interesting approach, right? So if you do binary search over, let's say, this M cross N matrix, and you are doing binary search on the matrix, on one row, you are going to require log n time, right? And that, if we have to do M number of times, essentially that gives rise to M log n algorithm. And obviously we should do the logarithmic factor, that is the searching, whether on rows or columns. Which one will you do?
the logarithmic will be better if it is on the if m is greater, then we'll do it on m. So n log n.
Correct. So whichever is the larger, the column or the row, that should be done in a binary search order, and therefore your complexity will be minimum of m log n, comma n log n. Right. So that is going to be a very good algorithm. In fact, what is the issue with this algorithm is that it is taking advantage only of one possible ordering. It is not taking advantage of the other one, right? But nevertheless, it's a very good algorithm, and whatever we have studied, I think it makes a good use of that. So that's good. Yeah, go ahead.
So to decide to choosing between right side and bottom, so if we want an increasing number, we will choose based on which number leads closer to the 44. So say we are at 13 and we want to reach 56. So there are two options, 22 and 29. So since 29 approaches 56 more than 22, we'll choose that path. That way,
Okay.
we have some logic which says that this might approach 56 faster. While choosing everywhere, we have to choose. So for finding an increasing number, we have to choose between right and bottom. So we'll choose the number which converges faster. Like if it's 30 and 44 and 31 are the two choices, we choose 44 as it might have the larger numbers nearer to it than 31, as it might have 33, 37, and so on. So we might reduce the number of steps taken to reach the final goal.
Sir, the
Sure.
algorithm that I told, that starts from the right bottom corner with 69 and then take one step at a time towards the number that we have to find. I think that will find that in linear times. Like it will be order of n plus m at the worst case. Like had it been at the top, it will be order of m. Like if it was in the left top, it will be order of m plus n steps it will reach it.
That is not clear to me. If you are starting from right bottom,
Yes.
then that is not clear to me, because you cannot discard more than one quadrant at a time.
Sir, if you are starting,
Fine, right? We are guaranteed that it will be in the second quadrant. So the worst case, it could be the left top. In the second quadrant, the worst case it will be the left top. That is the question 3. Not the question 3, the number 3, the left top.
Right.
So at each stage, that is the worst case we can go. So the maximum number of steps we will take is the number of we go one at a time towards the left and then one at a time towards the top. So it will be something like m plus n.
Yeah, that will be true, provided we are not we are searching in only one quadrant at a time. So this is not getting guaranteed. So the algorithm that was given, I think, by Nischal, was that you start from the lower left or upper right. That will make sure that you reach in m plus n. But if you start from right bottom, then it becomes a little difficult, because as you, let's say that you are searching for 49 and somehow from 69 you are coming closer to 49 in some way. But I can arrange the numbers in such a manner as an adversary such that you will be forced to look at the lower left quadrant or the upper right quadrant. Right? Both of them you might have to look at, because 49 might appear here or there. So that's the worry about the complexity here.
As long as the elements are unique, we can take the number that is smaller of them but still greater than 49, right? We can always take that step.
No, that is difficult. That's what I'm saying, because there are so let's say that you are 69 and you are approaching somewhere, let's say you are coming closer to, let's say, 44 or 51 and so on. The numbers between 44 and 69 are not only towards the right hand side above, but those could also be left hand side below of this axis. That is the worry. Or maybe I'm not understanding your algorithm.
Okay, sir. Yeah, after the class, I'll try mailing you regarding
Sure. No problem. That's fine. So I'll come to the next suggestion. As 44 is not a differentiating factor, we should not keep it as a focus. Okay, that's fine. If the matrix was sorted in row major way, it would have been helpful. I didn't understand this. So row measure is more towards the implementation of how this matrix is going to get stored, more about the performance. So I didn't understand why row measure versus column measure will play a role. Silar, Tanzit, do you want to add?
I meant like if elements in the second row are all greater than the elements in the first row, then it would help, right? That was like all the elements are sorted
Oh, I
in the
see, I
row.
see, I see. Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're right. So if that would have been the case, in that case, you could possibly view them as completely ordered, right? So
Yeah.
you mean the last element of the first row is smaller than the first element of the second row?
Second row. So then it will just be the sorting binary search along the column, first column, and then whichever column we get, we search among that column.
Correct. So if that is the case, if that would have been the constraint on the matrix, then you can solve it in log of m plus n time. Log of m n time. That is log m plus log n.
Yeah.
Correct.
This is different from them.
Yeah. No repetitions of numbers. Yes, that is what we are assuming right now. Can we start comparing from the bottom right? We can try, and we discussed a few things about that, and some of these you should be aware that you might be able to, and I'll come to that. You might not be able to discard always 3 quadrants. Given an n cross m matrix, the right bottom element is the largest and top left element is the smallest, so we can compare using these two. Yes, but beyond that, if you, for example, come somewhere in between, then it is not clear whether you are going to go to let's say bottom left or top right, because both of these might be having values which are relevant with respect to the search key. We should start from bottom left or top right, that is Nischel's algorithm. Order m log n for row wise binary search, that is correct. Sai Charan, we might be able to discard more quadrants if we start from bottom right. That is a little tricky. And I hope by now I have convinced you that that's a little difficult. Whatever is the bottom right element of first quadrant, and we could eliminate first quadrant. Similarly, we can compare the numbers with the bottom right elements of the rest of the quadrants. This also is a possibility, but you should try that out. For example, if you take the bottom right quadrants, essentially we have these 4 values: 44, 52, 60, and 69. Now, which quadrant will you discard? So 44, based on that, you can discard the left top quadrant. Based on 52 value, if I am searching for 49, well, I can say that I cannot discard that quadrant. Based on 69, right? Can you discard that quadrant between 44 and 69? No, we cannot, because 49 might be there. Similarly, based on 60, I cannot discard, anyway, 60, because of 60, the value could be there, right, in that particular quadrant.
Yes,
so
it will only be helpful for some elements like 61, where we can discard for second and third quadrant.
Yes. So for some of them, it is going to be true. That is correct. And I'm taking the role of, I'm playing the role of devil's advocate, that I'll change the matrix such that it becomes difficult for you, right? So we have to make sure that irrespective of what your instructor does, irrespective of what an adversary does, irrespective of what your devil's advocate does, the algorithm should still work. Okay, whichever is larger, no guarantee of second quadrant. Yes, no guarantee of second quadrant. 49 is not in the second quadrant. It will be single binary search. So we want to find 44. We can start with the last column, traverse down and check if the number is greater than 44. If it is not, discard. If it is not, discard. If yes, start from that row, reduce column by 1 and follow the same algorithm. That's correct. So Vishwa has some resemblance to what Nishchit had suggested, or Nischal had suggested. So this algorithm we are going to study. Pick the most central diagonal, binary search on that diagonal. If you find the element, great. If you don't, 2 rectangular segments have been eliminated. Okay, which sum up to half of all the numbers. Find element in remaining lower left and in upper right rectangle. Yeah, that is possible. So you can discard 2 quadrants. That is possible. And then you will have to repeat it across the other 2. So that is one possibility. I think this needs to be worked out, what will be the complexity. But so assuming that these are, assuming n square matrix, this might still be n plus n is what I feel. So that will probably generalize to very similar to Nischel's algorithm, where we are discarding 1 row and 1 column at a time, or 1 row or 1 column at a time. So it will come out to be linear in m and n, right? Or m plus n. Okay, so there are a lot of discussions and I'm happy about that. And you have left me with 4 minutes to explain the algorithm. So I'm not going to explain it right away, but I'm going to just kind of tell you more precisely what is going to happen. I think our discussion about the actual working algorithm will probably have to wait for the next class, right? So consider this, and I'm going to distribute it as 4 quadrants. Okay, sorry, I think our renaming, numbering of the quadrants was a little different. But I'm going to number them as Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 as shown here. And with respect to our 44, if we look at the I and J axis, right? So I'm going to use this. Essentially what we are doing is called as a divide and conquer mechanism, which is a way in which the different algorithms get specified. So if it is less than I0, the element I0, that is ith row and 0th column. If the element is less than that, as well as less than 0 and j, right? 0th row, jth column, that is those pink boxes that I have highlighted. So if the value is within these, then it is guaranteed that it is going to be in Q1. Is this correct? You guys agree with me? Okay, great. Thanks. If it is less than I0 and greater than 0j, if it is less than I0 and greater than 0j, then it is going to be in Q1 or Q2, but not in Q3, Q4. This is also correct? Okay. Now can you fill up the remaining 2 cases? So greater than I0 and less than 0j. What will happen? Greater than I0 and less than 0j. Okay. So I is the ith row and j is the jth column. So I0 is the first element in the ith row. 0j is the jth element in the 0th row. Right. So we cannot say that it is only Q4, because if it is greater than I0 and less than 0j, it can also be in Q1. Right? If you look at our that 44's thing, you will probably realize. So it can be in Q1 as well as Q4. Now can you fill up the remaining? What happens when it is greater than I0 and greater than 0j? Q3. Okay. Any other? Only Q3. Okay. Note that I am not talking about the value ij. I am talking about I0 and 0j. Okay. Q2, Q3, Q4. Tanay is saying Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Okay. So Tanay is right that it can actually be in Q1 also. So what you will end up doing if you compare these 2 values is that you will not end up anywhere. So you would have searched in all, and therefore if you use this particular algorithm, then you will end up having the complexity of, in the worst case, you might end up searching for 4 quadrants. So T of Mn, M is the number of columns, N is the number of rows, or vice versa, is going to be 4 times, that is the 4 quadrants of M by 2, N by 2. That will be the size of each quadrant, right? Plus some constant amount of work that I am doing. And that will lead to the complexity of minimum of M comma N square, right? And what does that mean? The complexity is same as the linear search, right? So this particular way that you can check I0 and 0j, that is not definitely going to work. So we are going to use a different approach, right? Which also won't work, but I'll explain to you anyway. Worse than row-wise binary search. Yes, this is definitely worse than. So this is again an important point. You have to go back and look at that example matrix, that if the value is greater than I0 and greater than 0j, that doesn't mean that it will be in Q2, Q3, Q4 alone. It can be in Q1 also. Right? So please look at that. We'll stop here, and I am happy with the discussion. But yeah, I think I didn't move too much ahead in the class. That probably happened because of the game we played. Right? Okay. So anyway, so we can take in INMJ also. Yes, you can try that. And whether it improves the complexity, I think you should definitely try. In fact, I'm going to use that in my next algorithm. Okay. So we'll stop here. See you in the next class.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't understand why only like Nischel's algorithm that he suggested that bottom left and top right. Why only those two? Where we have to start? I mean, we can start from any corner, and we can see, we can look at one row and one column above or right left side, and see the difference between the searching element and the element which is there top or left. Whichever is minimum, go in that direction.
Yeah. See, the issue that comes up is that you will be able to discard one row or one column initially, but as you go along, at some stage you will be stuck. Stuck meaning you won't be able to discard. I mean, you will have to split it as, let's say, quadrant 2 and quadrant 4. Right? That is also okay. That is not a problem. It's just that if you start from Q4 and Q2's ends, that is those endpoints, then you will be able to always move and discard, because you are always discarding the row and the column. So you will be row or the column, and therefore you will be able to move appropriately. But if you go from Q1 to Q3 or Q1 or Q3 endpoints, then it becomes difficult because of the values are sorted from left to right and top to bottom. Right? So you will end up somewhere in the middle, like our 44, the IJ value. And then you might have to go into the upper quadrant, upper right quadrant, or lower bottom quadrant. Right? So that becomes a problem. That can also be tackled. The complexity will turn out to be the same, but it becomes easier when you go start from Q2 end or Q4. That's the only thing.
Okay, sir, understood. I was thinking like we can choose any of 00 or M0, N0 or Mn. Like suppose we want to search 49 as the element, whichever we get the minimum difference, start from that corner. As you said, I understood the problem with that. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Murari, what Murari was suggesting is correct, that you can actually start from any of the corners. It's just that you have to, I mean, the search space is going to remain the same. It's just that it becomes easier to code up and think about or argue about, because you don't never split. All the elements are going to be in a rectangular shape. That is the only thing. Good. Manichandra says, how can we sort this matrix into a 1D array? Okay, that's a good question. So I would recommend that you suggest me some way in which this can be done, or somebody else. So this particular problem requires some sort of a wavefront, right? So you start from the first element 0, 0, and then your wavefront is the right element and the bottom element. Right? So these two elements will be part of the wavefront. You choose the minimum of the two, and then the wavefront moves. Now the wavefront moves, meaning that you will have to include the next element, which is at the bottom, and then the next element could also be on the right. Right? So whenever you choose an element, the right and the bottom elements need to be added to the wavefront. Now that wavefront is essentially a some sort of a sorted sequence. In this case, it's going to be actually priority queue. But anyway, discard that. But the wavefront is going to kind of grow bigger and bigger as you approach the diagonal, and you have to choose the minimum amongst these every time, and that minimum is going to be the next element. As soon as you choose the minimum, it's right and the bottom, just to the right and just below, those two elements should be added to the wavefront, and then you again choose the minimum. Right? And this way, the wavefront will keep on growing up to the diagonal, and then it will go on shrinking. In the end, you will only have one element left, which is going to be the largest element. So this is how it needs to be done, but this requires maintenance of some sort of queue or a sorted sequence. Let's put it that way. Yeah, so Aniruddha has suggested another way that you can merge the rows. So you have two sorted sequences, 0th row and the 1th row. You merge these two, you get a larger sequence. Now this larger sequence, you merge with the 3rd row and 4th row and so on. So that is another way in which you can get the sorted sequence. Yeah, we have only discussed it only at a high level. This merging of arrays is something which I'm going to ask you to do in probably our next class if you allow me to finish, but that is something which we are going to discuss. Any other questions? All right, so we will stop here. See you. There was a question. Merging row will take order mn. Okay, that's a good question, Chotu. It should not take mn time because these are not sorted. These are sorted. So you should be able to do it in much smaller complexity than that. Right? You should be able to make just, so if there are two sorted sequences. Oh, you are talking about only 2 rows or the complete matrix mn? Oh, complete one. Oh, I see. Complete one will probably require a larger complexity. Yeah, it can require mn time. Yes, you are right. It can require mn time. In fact, yeah, it can require mn time. I'm not sure if it will require more than that, but yeah, I need to think about it. Yeah. But definitely it will require, I can think of an algorithm which will be order mn. If you keep on doing this, yes. All right. Any other questions?
Sir?
Yeah, Niru.
Yeah, we had discussed that one problem, right? Like, could you give an insight on the case that you're talking about where the algorithm which starts at right bottom corner won't work?
No, it's not that it won't work. You have to be careful. That's what I'm saying. The values will not be contiguous in a rectangle. That's what I mean to say.
Oh, okay. So, I've written sort of an algorithm in my notebook. I'll sort of send the screenshot to you via mail, right? It also seems to eliminate one row or one column at a time at each step. So
if it is starting from Q3,
it starts from the right bottom corner. Yes.
That.
And then at each step, what we specifically do is we take. So we have 3 options: the above, right, or the diagonal above. So from these 3 options, we take the one that is greater than the 49, which is the number to be found, and the minimum of the three options that we have. So this AND condition. And then we recursively apply the same algorithm.
But you are discarding every time one row or one column. Is that what you are saying?
Yeah. So if we choose one, we have 3 options. Whatever option we choose, at least one row or one column would have been eliminated, right?
I think that might be a little tricky. I am not sure if it will work when you start from Q1, Q3 because for similar reasons as we discussed, but just send me that algorithm. I can take a look at it.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, sir, I have also written an algorithm that is similar to the binary bit which we divide into the parts. But here, what we are doing is if the value is equal, then we are just returning. Can I send you in the chat box? You can-
Yeah, sure, no problem. Feel free.
you can-
Actually, instead of the chat box, can you send it by email? I think that will be better because
Yeah.
I'll leave the meeting now. Just
Yeah, okay.
paste it in an email and send it across. I'll take a look at it
Okay.
because I also need to go for lunch now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other concerns? Yeah. Thanks, Chotu.
Sir, just one.
Yeah, Saichal. Go ahead.
Sir, I have not been added to the course in my workflow. Will that happen later? Because I was talking to my friends and they said some of them have been added.
So the manual addition has not been done yet.
Okay.
That I'm going to do maybe in next couple of days. So
Okay.
don't worry. If you are not at it, you will get at it. Don't worry. You have filled that form, right?
Yes, sir. I have filled that form.
That's sufficient. I'll take care of that. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, does the course have any textbook?
Yeah, so there is this Visas book which one can refer to. WEISS. That is Data Structures and Algorithms book. So that you can refer. I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
But yeah, there is some material which I have picked up from online sources.
Okay. So
That I'll anyway.
that book we can refer for algorithms as well?
Yes.
Okay, but in the course we won't be covering algorithms.
Not too many algorithms. Yeah, our emphasis is going to be more on data structures, but to illustrate data structures, we might have to get into some algorithms. Like we discussed subsequent sum problem. Even binary search in that way is an algorithm, right? So that way we'll get into some algorithms. But yeah, you can refer to this book. That is not.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so then all of us can go for lunch now. See you. Bye.